Welcome to Franchise Empires, where aspiring entrepreneurs learn exactly what it takes to become a successful franchise owner, from one location to 10 and beyond. I'm the Wolf of Franchises.
The Wolf of Franchises is the CEO of Wolfpack Franchising, as well as a creator at Workweek Media. All opinions expressed by the Wolf and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Wolfpack Franchising or Workweek. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The Wolf, Workweek, and Wolfpack Franchising may maintain positions in the franchises discussed on this podcast.
All right, guys, we're back with another episode to answer your questions. So this is a mailbag episode. I'll answer some of your most pressing questions on the franchise world and what's going on. So I'll start with the most common one, which is, what brands am I most excited about today? Normally, I don't answer this one because it can set off a feeding frenzy, but rather than just pick one brand and have everyone potentially flock to it, I'd love to just give a few brands that I think are interesting so I can at least hopefully satisfy some of you from Twitter who really are keen on seeing, what I'm thinking. And yeah, so I'll just dive into it. I think I wrote about this brand a few months ago, but Nothing Bundt Cakes is a super interesting brand. I have a few emerging ones that I'll get to in a second, but this is a brand that has about over 500 locations, founded in 1997, franchising since 2006, and they serve just what you'd expect from the name, bundt cakes. So you might think that's kind of insane. How is this a business that is actually going to be one of the better franchises out there? But their revenue on average, as per their most recent FTD, when I covered them in February of this year, it was a little over 1.4 million for a rough profit potential of about 300 grand. And that's after about a 550K to 980K build out and launch investment. So that's a very, very, very healthy business considering the scale, right? This isn't a brand with 5 locations that's showing, those numbers. It's almost 500 plus units doing that. So the proof of concept is incredibly strong. Again, the brand was founded, right, in 1997. So we can be pretty confident that it's a business that's here to stay. They haven't grown like wildfire, which at this point, I actually prefer that because they've grown slow and steady at their own pace. They clearly have a system for adding new franchisees. And again, those numbers are really strong. I'd imagine, if you look at their website, look, I've never had a bundt cake, but they look pretty good. They look more like high-end cakes. I'm sure it's a great gift to bring to a party and that people enjoy. But I'd imagine that the inputs, especially at the scale this brand is at now, the inputs are probably pretty low. So meaning it doesn't cost much to actually create your cake. So your cost of goods are fairly low. But this is different than fast food or even fast casual where everyone's getting squeezed on prices. But I'd imagine a bundt cake is something where you're going to spend, you can justify a $20 price point or something like that because it's a cake and it's meant to be a gift for some event or special occasion. It's not something you're buying. It's not dinner for yourself or for the family, right? Like everyone's complaining. If you've been on Twitter, you'll see all the complaints about Chipotle and how the amount of food you get for the cost has just gotten outrageous. I don't think people are going to be complaining about, oh, I spent money at this bundt cake. Bakeries can command premium pricing. And don't get me wrong, some people might think the pricing's crazy for certain bakeries and baked goods, but at least it's not some repeat purchase as far as like a daily or weekly thing that you would ever buy. I'm sure Nothing Bundt Cake gets repeat customers for they're maybe the top of the list in consumers' minds for a cake when they need it. But yeah, I just think overall they're in a better pricing position than maybe some of the other restaurant brands out there. And again, really the biggest factor here is just the level of proof of concept. You can't beat that. It just looks like a really good business. And I think it's a different tactic of breaking into a brand. I don't know how much greenfield is available. It depends on your market. But if you're one of the folks trying to, break into a franchise as an operator, right? Meaning taking over an existing location. This could be a good brand to look into. So on the emerging front, I'll give you two brands. One of them is 643. Again, another brand I covered in the newsletter back at the end of March, I think. Founded in 2015, franchising since 2023. It's a softball franchise, meaning they specialize in softball facilities that provides batting cages, but also training like pitching and hitting coaching. And I believe they have a lot of ex-athletes that work there. But stay with me here. Like, this probably isn't a brand that's going to grow to, thousands of locations the way McDonald's or, other brands or Orange Theory can do. But the numbers are really impressive. So they've got an investment range of about 400 grand to 750 grand. And then the average revenue is a little under 800 grand with a profit potential of 128,000. Again, based on the 2023 FDD. However, more context on those financial. Their first location, which opened in 2015, is putting up some pretty phenomenal numbers. So that location generated just over 1 million in revenue in 2022 and an EBITDA of 250K. And that revenue is a mix of camps, instructor lessons, even I think about $40,000 of retail sales. But that primary source is of revenue, which 80% of it is about membership fees. So that's, good recurring revenue and shows the potential of this business. You'd obviously want to dive in and ask what's going on with the other two locations. Perhaps they're smaller and the investments were on the smaller side anyway, so it could still work. But overall, I just thought there's not many businesses doing, or in fact, I've never come across a softball facilities business like this. And, there are some comparables as far as there's a batting cage baseball type facility franchise. I think it's called D-Bat. I could verify that. But yeah, overall, it's a brand that if you look at their website, you'll see they're very serious about their industry. They announced a partnership last year with a softball star and a former All-American. So yeah, I think it's an interesting brand. Perhaps if you're not into softball, that might be a blocker for you, but I like how it's niche. I like how it's focused, and there's not many franchise competitors. So to me, worth a look and to learn about the membership model. Lastly, a brand that I also am excited about. I interviewed her recently. Her name is Alexandra Spitz of the New Mom School. So I highly recommend listening to that episode. But overall, again, I think brands that are in spaces that are less crowded are always attractive. So just like 643, right? The New Mom School is doing something that really isn't out there and widely available in the market. And when I say the market, I don't mean just like franchises. Because I think a lot of people, right, just check maybe Entrepreneurs Franchise 500 and look for competing brands. And, in most categories, you have anywhere from a couple to dozens of the same brand all going after the same type of market, whether it's pet care or a salad concept or boutique fitness, right? There's usually a ton of competitors, but just like 643, the New Mom School doesn't have any competitors. And I really like, so for those who didn't listen to the episode, it's an educational franchise for moms who just had children and goes through, what they can do to be the best parent they can be, but also the best partner to manage the stresses of having a new baby. And yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for folks to really just be able to find a community of moms and to be able to really deal with and work through just life after having that baby. So I think there's a massive impact that Alex is genuinely trying to spread, and the franchising model is such a perfect fit for that. So I think for moms out there who are looking for a business and in the FDD, her corporate location, I believe, is doing north of $400,000 in revenue. So it is, this is an education business at its core. So you're not buying equipment or anything crazy treadmills or cooking equipment like a restaurant would have to do. So this is just a business that I think you could run well. And if you're passionate about this, which I'd imagine a lot of moms out there are, I think it's a really good mix of a passion project that can actually yield financial rewards as well. Though you get the sense that, Alex, she happened to find kind of a business that she loves that also yields the financials, but that was never her main goal. So it's nice to hear stories like that where they kind of stumble into it from the financial side, that is. And yeah, just to be clear too, they have a great operation there. They're taking franchising very seriously. And so, yeah, they're a professional act, it seems. So I think between 643, the New Mom School, and Nothing But Cakes, hopefully that answers some questions for the brands I'm currently just interested in. And then Another question is biggest traps to avoid. So I think for one, this kind of ties into, right, the brands I'm interested in, maybe trends. I think, and by trends, I mean a lot of times in franchises, right, I've called it the franchise hype cycle. There's a brand that only has a few locations, that has really good numbers, and then a lot of competitors pop up, like cookies and crumble cookies specifically, right, is the best example of this from recent memory, but it's happened in salad concepts. Boutique fitness has seen every shape and size imaginable of a concept, whether it's Orange Theory and F45 are largely the winner, but you also have Club Pilates as well in the Pilates space, though there's a lot of competition there. So I think having a sense of, is a category too played out, and are you buying late into a business, or even if you're buying quote unquote early in one of these trends and hype cycles, is that really what you want to do? Do you want to buy with the intention of selling in 3 to 5 or 6 years before things get too bad? Like, that just doesn't sound like something I'd ever want to do on purpose. You want a sustainable business. So the businesses I mentioned before, they're pretty niche. So they're not as repeatable and replicable as a business like a salad chain or a boutique fitness. So I'd say just avoid kind of those hype cycle type brands if you don't think it's sustainable. Sometimes there's brands that are popular for a good reason and they get a lot of attention. So that doesn't mean every brand that's growing fast is just a bubble waiting to burst. But there are certainly times where a category is becoming oversaturated and you have to really consider, is this brand in it for the long haul, or are they trying to cash in on a bunch of excitement just in this space? And then another trap to avoid is, I see this largely from what we're doing at Crockett, where we do centralized bookkeeping for franchisors, and that unlocks a coaching platform for the franchisees. But we see this all the time where franchisees really have the expectation that everything's going to be figured out for them. They wire the franchise fee and it's done. So even though it's a franchise, you definitely should be getting support, should be getting a lot of systems from day one figured out for you, but you still have to do a lot of work as the business owner for any franchise, whether it's McDonald's or a brand new franchise that no one's heard of. You still have to be the one hiring, right? They might tell you the job posting, the title, the compensation range you should be listing. They might even train you on how to do the interviews, which this would be above and beyond support at this point. But they could tell you where to post the job posting and what systems to use. Maybe you're using WorkStream to mass post a job opening on 7 different recruiting websites. So they could do a lot of that work for you that you would have to figure out on your own through trial and error normally. But even so, even when they're doing all that, you're still the one who has to get on the calls and hire those first employees and sell them on what, not just, you're going to obviously want to evaluate someone if they're a good fit for your company, but you're going to also have to sell them on why the opportunity is better than maybe other opportunities that they're looking at. So that's just one example, right? But there's numerous examples of being a business owner where you can't just expect them, the franchisor, to have it all figured out where you're not going to have to do anything, because it won't be like that for 99% of brands. It's still going to be a ton of work, especially if you're building a new unit, right? And the brand, maybe if it doesn't have recognition in your area, you're going to have to find a way to drive business, drive foot traffic, get the word out of your brand. And that's something the franchisor can guide you on and coach you on, but you're going to have to want to do it. So they'll give you, right, the framework and the dots, but you have to connect them. You have to be the one to lead the charge locally. So don't fall into that trap, because that's when there's a saying that franchise sales sells the dream and franchise ops inherits the nightmare. And I think it's largely because the sales team and ops team aren't necessarily, this is at the franchisor, they're not in lockstep, and the sales team is making it sound like your life's going to be amazing and super easy as soon as you buy the franchise. And the ops team knows, no, this is still a lot of hard work. So don't fall for that if you're a franchise salesperson who you're speaking with. And keep in mind, no matter what their job title is at the franchise brand, or if they're a franchise sales company, no matter what the person's job title is, if they're the one guiding you through the buying process, make no mistake, they are a sales rep. So just know how the game's played and understand it's going to be tough work. But again, if you get in with a good brand, they can turn you, maybe a new rookie business owner. As long as you put in the work, the best franchises can turn rookie business operators into very successful business owners. So that's the power of franchising. And I'll end with this question. What is the most important part of the due diligence process? This is a question I get all the time. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, but speaking to franchisees is far and away the most important aspect of this entire process. So no matter what I say, as the Wolf, no matter what any Twitter influencer or franchise broker or media outlet says, right? None of that even comes close to speaking to existing franchise owners of the brand, right? They have made the investment. They are in the game. They're on the other side of that leap of faith franchise signing, and they are allowed to, most importantly, tell you anything and everything about their business, right? They can share their financials with you. It's very different than the franchisor, who is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, and there are limits on what they should say, or sorry, not should, what they can say, even though some in the industry just absolutely disregard that. But the ones who are playing by the rules can't necessarily share everything you'd want to know. So that's why franchisees are the best. And also just make sure that you speak with every franchisee possible, right? You should be trying to build as much data and information on the franchise as possible. And you only do that by talking to tons of franchisees. And yeah, so the franchisor, they're probably going to introduce you to, when you're going through their process, they will at a certain point introduce you to franchisees, but they're probably going to point you to, some of the more successful ones, the ones who they know are going to speak well of the brand. And, that doesn't mean that that they're hiding anything, but if you're trying to get someone to feel good about the brand, they're going to give you the folks who they think are the best representation of that brand. And more often than not, that means that best representation is also someone who's performing well. So just make sure to do your homework and speak with as many as possible so you get that comprehensive picture. So again, you don't think that it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows on day one. So yeah, I cannot emphasize that enough. Speaking to new franchisees is the most important thing. And then, if it's a new franchisor, a few of the brands I thought I was interested in, said I was interested in before, right? They're pretty new. They don't have many franchisees open. So in those instances, you have to believe in the executive team. You have to believe in what they're trying to build and that they can deliver it on that and execute. And also, right, that you'd enjoy working with them, because the early franchisees of a brand really do work closely with the franchisor. So if you can't see yourself working with them on a weekly basis, it's probably not going to work out. And maybe even if it does work out, it won't be enjoyable, right? If the people you're speaking with every week aren't people you like to spend time with. So yeah, keep that in mind. And I hope this episode was helpful for all.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Empires. We're coming to you soon with actionable insights to take the next step on your franchise journey. So make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen.